Unexpected blessings revealed. Trust God's plan for divine transformation in your life. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, the land of Canaan lay under the dark cloud of Midianite oppression. The Israelites, once a prosperous nation, now lived in shadows, their crops devoured and their hopes seemingly extinguished. In the midst of this turmoil, a humble farmer named Gideon found himself crouched in a winepress, desperately threshing a meager amount of wheat. With every stroke of the flail, he hoped to salvage some sustenance while cowering from the marauding Midianites who roamed the land like specters. As Gideon labored, despair weighed heavily on his heart. Has God truly abandoned us? He whispered to the stillness, recalling the ancient tales of divine deliverance that echoed through the generations. The hardships faced by his people clouded his thoughts, and he found himself consumed by a gnawing fear that God's promises had withered like the harvest, devoured by the enemy. Suddenly, a brilliant light broke through the suffocating gloom. The angel of the Lord stood before him, illuminating the darkness. "The Lord is with you, O mighty man of valor," the heavenly messenger declared. Gideon felt as if the very ground beneath him had shifted. How could he, a mere farmer, trembling in a winepress, be called mighty? Bewildered, he dared to look up, for the angel continued, revealing a divine charge, to lead Israel against Midian and reclaim the land meant for them. "Lord," Gideon replied, his voice quaking with disbelief, "if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened?" The angel assured him that the choice was not made for his strength, but rather for his unwavering faith, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Yet, his heart was still a tempest of doubt, and in desperation, he asked for a sign, a divine assurance that this calling was indeed authentic. Fleeing to prepare an offering, Gideon returned, laying it before the angel. With a touch of fire, the angel consumed the offering, igniting a flicker of hope amidst Gideon's fears. But with hope came an even greater uncertainty. Trembling, he sought another sign, testing the Lord further with a fleece demanding clarity from God in the face of impending duty. Each divine confrontation chipped away at his fear, slowly molding a trust that began to overshadow his doubts. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. As Gideon gathered his warriors, hope blossomed amidst his doubts. But God commanded him to reduce his forces, whittling an army down to a mere 300 men. Gideon's heart trembled as he faced the reality of battle with such meager numbers. But then, a profound truth settled upon him: the victory would not come from an army's might, but from the Lord's unfathomable power. With torches hidden in jars and battle cries roaring from his soul, Gideon stood ready. Each heartbeat resonated with a newfound realization of God's plan. The night of reckoning loomed heavy, thick with tension and anticipation. Would he rise to fulfill this divine calling? Would Israel witness the restoration of their hope upon the battleground as the story of deliverance unfolded? Only time would reveal the miraculous tapestry that God was weaving through Gideon's trembling hands and steadfast faith. That night, darkness enveloped the valley of Jezreel, and Gideon's 300 men lay in silent anticipation. The moon, a mere sliver in the sky, cast fleeting shadows, echoing the uncertainty within hearts. Gideon turned to the men, each face a mirror of tension and resolve. "Awake!" he proclaimed, gripping the jar of the lamp tightly. "Tonight, we stand not just as men, but as the voice of the Almighty. Through our faithful God, we shall deliver our people." As the midnight hour drew closer, Gideon descended upon the Midianite camp, guided by the unseen hand of God. The stillness of the night was suddenly pierced by the sounds he had rehearsed: trumpets that would sound in unison, the breaking of jars unleashing the light within, and the shouts of victory declaring the name of the Lord. The Midianites, still lost in slumber under their starry canopy, awoke to an unimaginable sight. The sword of the Lord and of Gideon. Rang the battle cry, echoing through the mountains and sending tremors of confusion through the enemy ranks. Suddenly, panic unleashed in the night, as Midianites stumbled over one another, engulfed by a spirit of confusion. In that moment, Gideon's army, with torches blazing, became a formidable force, despite their humble numbers. Amidst the chaos, swords clashed and anger ignited as their foes turned against their own. Gideon, from a distance, watched the calamity unfurl with a heart both fortified and trembling, knowing deliverance was being wrought not by human hands, but by a divine decree. Meanwhile, the Spirit of the Lord was upon Gideon, and he shouted, "Pursue! Do not lose heart! For the Lord has delivered our enemies into our hands." His words carried the weight of divine assurance, and the men followed his lead, invigorated by faith. In swift succession, the Midianite soldiers fell back, bewildered by the brightness shining forth from the jars, which illuminated the dark night filled with fear. Every step Gideon and his men took was not just on the battlefield, but upon the promises of their God. They chased after the remnants of their oppressors, reclaiming honor for a nation buried beneath despair. As the sun began to rise, casting a golden hue over the land, the Israelites found themselves not only victorious but transformed. A sound of celebration erupted, and the cries of jubilation echoed throughout the valleys of Canaan, as the people declared the glory of the Lord who had triumphed mightily. Yet, a question loomed larger than the victory itself: will we remember? Gideon, shaken by the wonder of God's provision, wondered if their hearts would remain steadfast when the smoke of victory faded into the memory of bygone battles. Would they cling to the deliverance of their God or return, once again, to the snares of despair? And as the dust settled from the battle, a whisper echoed in Gideon's heart, beckoning him forward. But what lay beyond this deliverance? What shall I do with my people now that they have tasted freedom again? Gideon pondered, for even amidst victory, God's greater plan was unfolding, weaving through their triumph a narrative of deeper covenant and promise yet to be revealed. As the dawn's light broke over the horizon, the valley was filled not only with the remnants of victory but with an air of expectancy. The Israelites gathered to Gideon, faces radiant yet questions flickering in their eyes. "Let us rejoice in our deliverance," he proclaimed, yet amidst their jubilation, his heart bore a weight of uncertainty. "But remember, the Lord has not merely granted us victory, he desires our fidelity." Among the throngs, Ephraim's leaders approached, drawn by the glow of triumph but entangled by the remnants of rivalries past. "Why did you not call us to arms?" one demanded, his voice sharp with indignation. There was a moment of tension as the crowd turned to witness the confrontation, hearts thudding in the silence that followed. Gideon, filled with the wisdom imparted by God, responded gently, "What have I done in comparison to you? Is not the gleaning of Ephraim better than the vintage of Abiezer? God has saved you from the Midianites." With humility, he reflected their fears, yet he beckoned them toward unity, serving the one true God who had brought them together. As Eli, the leader of Ephraim, and his kinsmen settled, a greater understanding bridged the divide. The tribes joined together to pursue the remnants of the Midianite army. Gideon, emboldened by the Spirit of the Lord, sent messengers throughout the mountain country of Ephraim, calling forth each tribe to arise, proclaiming, "The Lord has routed the Midianite camp before us. Come! Let us reclaim our heritage." And so it was, that the faithful joined together as one. They pursued the enemy as a force united by purpose, crossing the Jordan River with the promises of God floodlit in their hearts. As they pressed forward, they captured 2 Midianite princes, Oreb and Zeb, and brought their heads to Gideon across the Jordan. The act was one of triumph, yet Gideon, though victorious, remained reflective. He addressed the men gathered around him, "The Lord has given us our deliverance, yet this day will not be the end of our tale. In our triumph lies a test of our hearts. Will we walk in his ways or return to our iniquities?" Yet even as he spoke, the memories of battles fought in disobedience lingered, as the shadows of sin ached to re-enter their hearts. Gideon knew well that their journey was less about the swords of men and more about the surrender of hearts. Suddenly, a deeper revelation dawned upon him. He sensed a stirring in his spirit, a calling from the Lord greater than the clash of swords. But what if our victory is but the beginning of a grander narrative? He pondered. As the tribes returned to their homes, Gideon sought a quiet place, seeking wisdom and direction from God. The battle was won, yet, a battle of faith awaited. What shall be the legacy of this deliverance? Gideon cried out, a yearning echoing in his heart. For the Lord is not satisfied with mere victories, he seeks the transformation of his people. A whisper stirred the air around him, foretelling of a covenant that would redefine their nation. The sun dipped low on the horizon, scattering rays which painted the earth in hues of gold. Gideon stood at the edge of the valley, resolute, for he sensed the Spirit of God was not yet done. And thus a new question arose, remarkable and profound: what shall come next as we dwell in faith, and how will God's sovereign plan unveil itself among us? As Gideon stood upon the brow of the valley, enveloped in contemplative silence, the glimmer of the evening sun danced upon the waters of the Jordan, echoing the promise of the Lord. His heart surged with hope amid the uncertainty that lingered like shadows at dusk. He knew that the true battle, the one that demanded deep resolve, lay ahead. Then God broke the stillness, speaking to Gideon's heart: "You have seen my hand in your deliverance, yet the time has come for the people to know that the weight of this victory bears a greater purpose. They have been called not only to triumph but to transformation." With renewed urgency, Gideon gathered the elders of Israel. "Listen, brethren. The Lord our God has delivered us from the Midianites, yet we must not become complacent. We are to draw near to him anew. Let us bring our hearts into alignment with his purpose." His words were a solemn call, echoing the assurance found in Deuteronomy: "When you have eaten and are full, then you shall bless the Lord your God." Deuteronomy 8 verse 10. The gathering murmured, heart stirring at the charge to go beyond mere victory. And as they deliberated, a messenger approached with tidings that caused a stir. "A great city lies to the northeast, their king has gathered strength. They seek to avenge the Midianites." His words ignited a spark of fear among the people, and Gideon discerned the heaviness in their spirits. There, at the border of fear and faith, they trembled, for the name of the city was deeply feared among them. "Is there no faith left among us?" he urged. "Did our God not defeat the third of Midian with mere trumpets? Shall we not arise in strength once more?" Yet the weight of history pressed down upon them, for many among them remembered the chains of bondage and their cries under the oppression of the Midianites. Gideon raised his hands, seeking unity of purpose. "Let us not forget the testimonies of God's faithfulness. For he has promised us that through him, we are more than conquerors." Romans 8 verse 37. The leaders began to rally, inspired by his conviction. "Then let us prepare. If our God has ordained this day, we must trust him. We shall confront this city and proclaim our God." Thus, the Israelites mounted their horses and gathered their swords, voices rising in a chorus of praise as they prepared to march into the unknown, invoking the name of the Lord of hosts, declaring, "If God is for us, who can be against us?" Romans 8 verse 31. As the night approached, the army of Israel stood at the edge of the valley, their camp illuminated by the faint flicker of lamps, but within their hearts burned a brazen fire, ignited by the promises of God. Within this resolve, Gideon sensed a greater unfolding, for the battle was not solely a test of strength or skill. He reflected upon the promise of Jeremiah: "And I will give you a new heart and a new spirit." Ezekiel 36 verse 26. This victory was to be a catalyst, a divine pivot leading their nation back to God, restoring covenant faithfulness. And so they marched forward, the sound of their feet echoing like the thundering of an advancing storm. Yet, in the darkest hour of night, a whisper resounded in Gideon's spirit, rich with anticipation. "For I have plans for you," the Lord affirmed, "plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Jeremiah 29 verse 11. What shall unfold as they step into this divine calling with a heart transformed? The dawn of a new chapter was imminent, and in the shadows of encounter, the Lord's sovereign plan awaited its revelation. As the dawn broke, painting the sky with hues of red and gold, the army of Israel breathed in the promise of a new day. Gideon, seated upon his steed, surveyed the faces of his men. They were a mixture of resolve and uncertainty. The sound of the morning breeze whispered through the valley, a reminder of the Lord's faithfulness. "Prepare yourselves," Gideon commanded, his voice steady, "for this day has not been birthed in mere circumstance. The Lord brings us here for a divine purpose." Recall his words through Joshua, "I will never leave you nor forsake you," Joshua 1 verse 5. He is with us still. With hearts trembling at the threshold of confrontation, they rallied around Gideon. Yet, even as they took their places, Gideon's spirit wrestled within him, knowing that God's method was often shrouded in mystery. As he contemplated the approach to their foe, a sudden thought pierced his soul, a divine apprehension, stirring a reaffirming of faith. "Lord," Gideon cried out, "speak to me. For until now, I have sought the might of our hands, reveal to me your wisdom." As if in answer, the Lord's voice flowed through the silence like a mighty river, whispering to his heart, "You shall lead them as I direct you, but first, let them be reduced." Reduced? Gideon pondered, confusion wrestling with obedience. "How shall I lead a smaller force against a fortified city?" The Lord continued, "Gather only those who are truly willing to follow, those who seek me with all their hearts. For those who are afraid and trembling, let them return home. A remnant of faith is what I require." Thus, Gideon called forth the men, his heart pounding with anticipation. "All you who are fearful, you may return." And to his astonishment, the majority of the warriors turned, leaving but a mere fraction of those who had come. Yet, within him stirred a resolute certainty God was orchestrating a mighty deliverance. The remaining soldiers, a mere 300 men, gathered around him, resolute and determined. As Gideon looked upon them, he felt a divine energy coursing through his being. This was not merely an army, it was a covenant community called forth for a divine encounter. "Take up your lamps and trumpets," he instructed, "for the Lord's battle will not be fought as ours are accustomed. We shall go forth in the night, silent as shadows, and on my command, we will proclaim the Lord's victory." Under the darkened canopy of night, they moved as one, the flickering of lamps illuminating their path towards the opposing city, their hearts filled with the promises of what lay ahead. As they approached the enemy encampment, Gideon could feel the weight of their task pressing heavily upon him. "Arise," he encouraged them, "for we are not alone. God has chosen this day to execute his justice and mercy." At the stroke of midnight, Gideon raised his trumpet and shouted, "For the Lord and for Gideon." A cacophony of sound erupted as lamps were raised and trumpets sounded, sending confusion into the heart of the enemy. Within that chaos, the edifice of fear turned upon itself, and the Midianites fell into disorder, struck by an unseen hand. Gideon stood firm, knowing the battle belonged to the Lord, echoing the words of Exodus, "The Lord will fight for you, and you shall hold your peace," Exodus 14 verse 14. As victory unfolded before their eyes, Gideon realized this moment was about more than just triumph, it was the transcendence of faith over fear, the unmasking of God's sovereign hand among his people. And as the dawn broke once more, Gideon's spirit soared, for he understood the depth of God's plan amidst the tumult of battle. It was not merely Israel's defeat of Midian that God sought, rather, it was the transformation of hearts, a covenant renewal that would echo through generations. What other surprises would God weave into this tapestry of deliverance? Gideon sensed the stirring of promise amidst the breath of victory, and the unfolding of a legacy yet to be discovered rested upon the horizon. As the day emerged in brilliant light, casting aside the remnants of night, the scene of the battlefield lay etched in sharp relief. The broken tents of the Midianites fluttered like ghosts in the breeze, a testament to the power of the Almighty. The chosen remnant of Israel, emboldened by their unparalleled victory, gathered around Gideon, their faces illuminated with awe and relief. "Today," Gideon proclaimed, "we have seen the hand of the Lord at work. He has delivered us from the grasp of our oppressors and shown us that his strength is made perfect in our weakness. Memories of their fears seem to dissolve like mist before the sun, replaced by a fervor in their hearts. Yet, amid the jubilant celebrations, a whisper of the Lord touched his spirit once more, compelling Gideon to seek the next move in their journey. "Lord," he prayed, "what is to be done with the spoils of this victory? How shall I ensure that our people remember the marvel of your deliverance?" The Lord responded, "Gather the people, that they may witness your faithfulness in sharing what I have bestowed upon you. For every victory is but a stepping stone to a greater purpose." Thus, Gideon summoned the warriors of Israel, their coats of arms now symbols of divine triumph rather than defeat. He stood before them, his heart palpitating with an earnest desire to honor God's intentions. Brothers, the Lord has not only freed us but he has provided abundantly. Let us gather the treasures of the Midianites and dedicate them to the Lord. Rejoicing, the men collected gold, jewels, and resources that now lay before them like precious gifts from heaven. They brought forth all that could be carried, building a pile that shimmered golden in the morning light. With reverence, they laid aside a portion to be offered as a tribute to their God, acknowledging him as the true source of their victory. Yet amongst them, there were those who hesitated. They whispered softly, questioning the wisdom of giving so much away. Gideon, discerning their hearts, stepped forward. "Remember the promise of Exodus, you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth." Deuteronomy 8 verse 18. In sharing, we do not diminish our blessings but multiply our trust in his provision. Their hearts stirred, the murmurs subsided, and the people began to understand a shift was taking place. As they offered the bounty, they were not simply giving wealth, they were engaging in a covenant, reaffirming their commitment to God's ways. The days passed, and tidings of Gideon's victory spread across the lands. The fear of the Lord fell upon the neighboring nations, their hearts trembling before the God of Israel. But in the quiet of the night, Gideon sensed a deeper wave of transformation stirring within his people. An awakening of faith was brewing, one that began to weave together past grievances and future hopes. Gideon prayed fervently, seeking wisdom for his next steps. "Lord," he implored, "how shall we rebuild what has been broken? Restore our heritage, our trust in your unfailing kindness." As he meditated, a profound realization gripped him. This victory was not the end but merely the beginning of a new chapter of obedience, reconciliation, and a deeper reliance on God. For God was preparing the hearts of Israel, instilling a thirst for true worship. "Behold," Gideon declared to his people, "we must arise and capture this moment. For the Lord is not finished with us yet, he has plans to prosper us and to give us hope and a future." Jeremiah 29 verse 11. In that sacred gathering, as they responded to Gideon's call, a divine anticipation shimmered in the air. What was next for Israel? What new call of God would fulfill his promise of restoration? Even as the people rejoiced in their spoils, they sensed that this was only the dawn of a greater destiny unfolding. The very heart of God was drawing them closer toward a legacy, one that would echo through the ages. What miraculous wonders awaited them on the horizon, and how would God transform their trials into triumphs? The answers lay just beyond their reach, beckoning them to trust and seek the Lord with all their hearts, for God's sovereign plan was only beginning to reveal its depths. In the days that followed, Israel basked in the glow of their triumph, yet the air hummed with anticipation, pregnant with the promise of what was to come. Gideon, now a leader forged in the fires of faith, gathered his elders under the great oak at Ophrah. The sun cast long shadows as they listened intently to his words, aware that the Lord was stirring a new direction for his people. "Brothers," Gideon began, "the Lord has shown his might, and we must not become complacent. Even in victory, we must remain vigilant and faithful. For the path ahead is fraught with challenges, and the heart of the people must turn wholly toward God. As he has delivered us from Midian, so shall he guide us into a new dawn." Elder Barak, his voice trembling with reverence, spoke up. "What shall we do, Gideon? The spoils before us are great, yet our hearts yearn for more than just riches. We desire to know His will. I have sought the Lord, Gideon replied, and He has revealed that we must establish a place of worship. A sanctuary where we shall offer our sacrifices and give thanks for His mercy. It will be a beacon for all Israel, a testament to His faithfulness. The elders nodded in agreement, their spirits stirred. Let us gather the resources, and let our hearts be aligned as one. For we are but a remnant, yet chosen to reflect His glory, they declared. Thus, the people began to contribute. From every corner of Israel, they brought their treasures, gold from the plunder, woven cloth from their tents, and fragrant oils. The contributions poured in as hearts overflowed with gratitude. In their unity, they forged a sense of identity restored, a people once again made whole through devotion to the Lord. However, as days turned into weeks, a shadow loomed. The very Midianites whom they had vanquished began to stir once again. Distant whispers spoke of their gathering strength. Gideon, burdened by this knowledge, fell upon his face before the Lord, pleading for a sign, for reassurance in his calling. God of Israel, Gideon cried, will you deliver us again? Shall we trust in your unfailing prowess against those who seek to undo what you have wrought? Show me a sign, that I might stand firm in your promise. That night, as Gideon slept, the Lord met him in a dream. A small loaf of barley bread tumbled into the camp of the Midianites, striking the very heart of their tents and causing a great uproar. The Midianites awoke in terror, speaking of Gideon's name with fear. For the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, has come upon us. They shouted in their waking fright. Awakening from his slumber, Gideon's heart raced. He understood the vision, the weight of the battle was not his to bear alone. The Lord would fight for him, for it was his sword that would bring their enemies to nothing. In fervor, Gideon gathered the people once again. Hear me, O Israel! He proclaimed, his voice echoing against the mountains. The Lord has shown us the victory that is yet to be. We are called not to rest in complacency, but to rise as one, trusting in the plan that He has before us. He shall deliver us once more, for our God is a warrior. A resounding affirmation arose from the gathered multitude. We will follow you, Gideon. We will trust in the Lord, for He has not abandoned us. But little did they know that unseen forces were at play. The Midianite kings conspired among themselves, rallying their forces in a desperate bid for revenge. While Israel prepared for the battle of their lives, an even graver confrontation loomed, a fight not merely against flesh and blood but against the very powers of darkness. In the stillness of the night, as the stars twinkled with the promises of God, Gideon felt the weight of his mission. What awaited them beyond the valley would not be simple conquest, but rather a divine test that would reveal their faith, their unity, and their dependence on the Lord's power. For the glory of the unfolding promise, God was weaving a deeper story, one that transcended their immediate trials, illuminating the path of redemption. What they did not yet perceive was that within this great battle, the Lord was preparing not just for a momentary victory, but for a legacy of faith that would echo through generations. And as Gideon looked upon his people, he sensed the gravity of their journey. They stood on the precipice of transformation. A divine confrontation awaited that would reveal God's sovereign plan in ways they could never have imagined. What would rise from the ashes of warfare? How would God's faithful hand carve a future from their present trials? The answer lay hidden in His divine purpose, a mystery yet to unfold. As dawn broke over the hills of Israel, the sun's rays pierced through the mist, illuminating the valley where the battle was set to unfold. Gideon, filled with a mixture of anticipation and trepidation, called forth his warriors to prepare. Be strengthened, O Israel! He declared, holding the staff of leadership aloft. This day, our God shall reveal His might, and through His power, we shall claim victory over our enemies. With increasing fervor, the men gathered around him, swords clattering and voices raised. Yet amidst the clamoring excitement, a heavy hush fell upon Gideon's heart. In the depths of his soul lingered the weight of the vision he had received from God, the symbolic loaf that had struck terror into the Midianite camp. Gideon recalled the words the Lord had spoken to him in the darkness, "The people you have with you are too many for me to deliver Midian into their hands." For Israel would become boastful, saying, "My own power has delivered me." With great urgency, he turned to his captains. "Let us bring forth the men who are fearful. Let those who tremble depart from among us." A silence fell, deepened by the solemn weight of the moment, as he watched a number of the men step away from the ranks. They turned, retreating toward the shelter of their homes, none knowing what lay ahead but feeling the gnaw of doubt. 10,000 remain, Gideon reported to the elders, yet in his spirit, he sensed that it was not enough. The Lord spoke once more, "The people are still too many. Bring them to the water, and there I will test them for you." Faithful and obedient, Gideon led the men to the stream, where they crouched down to drink. The water glistened and sparkled under the sun, beckoning them to quench their thirst. In the eyes of the Almighty, the choice was clear. Those who lapped the water like dogs were set apart. Only 300 remained, a number so small in comparison to the vast army of Midianites. Trembling but assured, Gideon understood the depth of God's intention. "Arise, O valiant warriors!" he cried, rallying the remaining sons of Israel. "We shall go forth not with strength of numbers, but with the mighty hand of our God, who shall deliver us today." As the sun reached its zenith, Gideon brought forth the plan of battle, armed not with swords and shields, but with torches, jars, and trumpets, the very weapons of the Lord's choosing. Each warrior stood at their post, hearts leaning on the Lord's promise, breathing prayers that ascended like fragrant incense. "Watch me and do likewise," Gideon instructed. "When I blow the trumpet, all those who are with me shall also blow yours. We will shout, for the Lord and for Gideon." Nightfall approached as the camp of Midian lay unsuspecting. The stillness of the evening felt heavy with expectancy, and the air thick with the scent of perplexing divine purpose. From their hidden vantage point, Gideon and his men, just 300 strong, held their breath. With a sudden clang, Gideon shattered the silence with the blast of his trumpet, and all around him did the faithful follow suit. The earth rattled with their shouts, "For the Lord and for Gideon." A panic erupted in the Midianite camp. Confusion danced among their ranks, triggering chaos as they turned upon one another. Fear gripped their hearts, for the God of Israel had confused them, orchestrating their own defeat. The sight of battle of darkness being undone reflected the truth that God's ways are not our ways. As Gideon watched the unfolding chaos, he could feel the reverberating truth of God's sovereign artistry, one that flourished in unexpected moments of dependence. As dawn's light began to rise, Gideon took account of the remnants of the battle. Victory belonged to the Lord, and with it arose a legacy destined to shine brighter through the ages. In this divine confrontation, the foundations of Israel would find themselves transformed, void of human pride, stitched together by faith. In their greatest time of trial, had God's sovereign plan only just begun to reveal the tapestry of his purpose? What awaited them? On the horizon of faith was more than they could possibly imagine. A greater calling, a deeper dependence on their God, beckoned them still. As the first light of dawn cast its golden rays upon the valley, the triumphant sounds of victory mingled with the whispers of the wind. Gideon, his heart still soaring from the miraculous turn of events, stood amidst the remnants of the battlefield, his eyes scanning the faces of his faithful warriors. They were weary but unbroken, marveling at what the Lord had wrought through their hands. "Gather, O Israel!" Gideon called, his voice echoing with authority and gratitude. "For our God has delivered us from the hand of Midian, and today we shall rejoice in our salvation." The men drew near, their swords now splattered not with the blood of their brethren but with the testimony of God's deliverance. The air was thick with exhilaration as shouts of praise rose like smoke from the braziers of celebration. Yet as they embraced the victory, a heaviness began to settle over Gideon's spirit. The words spoken by the Lord in his quiet moments replayed within him, carrying a weight beyond mere conquest, "For I have a plan for you, O Israel, that shall unfold in ways yet unseen." One by one, the warriors began to recount their experiences of the night, the terror that surged through the camp of Midian and their swift retreat, each story was a thread being woven into the larger narrative of God's purpose. But amidst the rejoicing, Gideon turned inward, pondering the staggering truth that lay ahead. Victory was but the beginning, not the end. "What shall we do next?" one of the captains asked, sensing the solemnity in Gideon's gaze. "Let us pursue them," Gideon replied, his eyes blazing with determination. "We must not let the enemy regroup, for the Lord has given us this moment to reclaim our inheritance. We shall not turn back while the yoke of oppression is still upon our people." Therefore, they gathered their strength once more, setting forth in pursuit of the fleeing Midianites. Yet as they traversed the rugged path, Gideon reminded his men of the most important weapon they had: prayer. "Let us seek the Lord, for our battle is His, and our triumph all the more certain when aligned with His will." The days stretched on as the men pressed hard, enduring fatigue and thirst, yet their spirits remained triumphant. Each night was filled with prayers that rose like incense before the Lord, seeking guidance, favor, and a resolution to the conflict that had plagued their land for far too long. In one such moment of sleepless prayer, Gideon heard the voice of the Lord: "Fear not, Gideon, for I will deliver the Midianites into your hand. You shall gather the people, and from the ashes of this victory, a new thing shall arise." As these words found root in his heart, a vision blossomed before him: a people reclaimed, drawn from the depths of despair into a covenant renewed. They would not merely fight the battles of the day, they would stand as a beacon of hope, revealing the glory of their God to all nations. With renewed purpose, Gideon gathered his men, spilling forth the vision given him: "Our fight is not merely against flesh and blood, but against the powers that seek to oppress our spirits. Let us be vigilant, for the Lord's plan extends beyond this day. We fight to reclaim our covenant, to reunite with our God." As the soldiers listened with rapt attention, something stirred within their hearts: a growing resolve to not only conquer but to walk in faithfulness with their God. For they sensed a truth that extended beyond their immediate strife: God's sovereign promise and purpose were unfolding, a divine narrative inviting them deeper into His presence. And as they prepared to engage with the remnants of Midian, each warrior understood that this battle would not just change a history of oppression, it would position them as vessels for a greater revelation, one that would echo through the ages. What awaited them was not merely victory in battle, but a heart transformation that would carve out a legacy of faithfulness among the people of God. Thus, in the unfolding drama, a new chapter was beginning. What final chapter would this story of redemption write? What greater dawn was yet to rise? The tapestry of God's purpose stretched far and wide, its design beyond their current understanding. As the first rays of dawn illuminated the land, casting away the remnants of darkness, Gideon stood at the threshold of a new beginning. His heart, once a tempest of doubt, pulsed with renewed conviction as he gazed upon the hopeful faces of his people. The victory over Midian was not merely an event of military triumph, but a pivotal moment in the unfolding plan of the Almighty. "Come, O Israel!" Gideon proclaimed, his voice ringing with authority. "We have tasted the goodness of the Lord. He has shown us His might, not only in the defeat of our enemies but also in the transformation of our hearts. Let us stand firm, not just as victors over Midian, but as a people renewed in covenant with our God." The Israelites gathered around him, their spirits buoyed by the celebration of deliverance, yet a glimmer of uncertainty lingered in their eyes. "What shall we do now?" one elder asked, breaking the silence that enveloped the crowd. "Now," Gideon began, "we shall establish our worship of the Lord. This victory is not the end, it is the beginning of a deeper trust, a call to walk closely with our God. We must build an altar of remembrance, a place where future generations can behold the goodness of Yahweh who has delivered us." With hearts ignited by zeal, the people rallied together. They worked side by side, gathering stones and timber, fashioning an altar in the very place where God had shown His faithfulness. As they laid the final brick, a reverent hush fell over the assembly, and Gideon offered a heartfelt prayer of dedication. "Lord, we thank You for Your mighty hand that has led us in battle, for You have given us the victory. May this altar stand as a testament to Your enduring covenant with us. Let it be a light upon the hill, a refuge for the weary, and a reminder of the deliverance you have wrought. We commit ourselves anew to serve and obey you, trusting in your eternal promises. As the smoke of their sacrifices ascended towards heaven, the Israelites felt a palpable shift within their community. They were no longer merely a collection of tribes bonded by blood, they were a united people, freshly transformed by divine intervention. Their hearts, once heavy with fear and despair, now thrummed with the hope of renewal. In time, word of their victory spread across the neighboring nations, and the fear of the Lord fell upon them. No longer did they see the Israelites as mere peasants to be oppressed, instead, they recognized the hand of God upon them, compelling them to reconsider their own allegiances. Yet amidst the celebration, Gideon remained vigilant. He sought the Lord diligently, understanding that the battle within was as significant as the battle without. O Lord, he prayed in the stillness of those early mornings, guard the hearts of your people. Strengthen our resolve to remain faithful to you as we navigate this new chapter. One fateful night, God's presence enveloped Gideon. You have seen my deliverance, but I desire more than your victories. I seek hearts devoted to my ways. You must teach the people to walk in righteousness, for their legacy depends on their faithfulness. Gideon embraced the weight of this commission, recognizing that it stretched beyond military conquests. It was a divine calling to usher in a renewal of worship and obedience that would define the identity of Israel for generations. Behold, he declared to the people, the Lord has bid us establish his ways among us. For we have fought against enemies of flesh and blood, but let us also wage war against fear, complacency, and disobedience within our hearts. Let us obey the commandments of our God, and in doing so, we shall prosper. Through the unfolding days, the transformation rippled throughout the land. The people rallied around Gideon, eager to align their lives with God's commandments. New leaders arose, filled with passion for teaching the ways of the Lord, and the nation of Israel began to flourish both spiritually and materially. As they faithfully walked forward, Gideon marveled at God's wisdom. The very strife that had once threatened to consume them became the forge of their unity, their hearts were awakened to the responsibility of stewardship over God's blessings. They understood now that every provision, every victory, was a mere reflection of their relationship with the Creator. And thus, Gideon's name became synonymous with faith and courage, a beacon for all who would come in future generations. Yet Gideon, with humble heart, would remind them always that it was not his might that secured their destiny, but the steadfast love and mercy of their Lord. In this divine orchestration, Israel was not just delivered, they were transformed into a people of purpose, entrusted with the mantle of hope for the nations. As they continued to worship in spirit and truth, they became a living testimony of God's faithfulness, a legacy woven into the fabric of history. And so, they ventured into a future bright with promise, ever anchored in their truth. Victory belongs to the Lord, and his plans are good, fulfilling with grace the hearts that seek him. Now, dear friend, as you reflect upon this extraordinary story, consider your own journey. Trust in God's plan for transformation in your life. Are you ready to take the next step in faith? As you have witnessed the work of God in Gideon's life, do not miss the opportunity to remain engaged with the powerful narratives that continue to reveal God's truth. You need to subscribe now to stay connected to God's Word. Leave a like now to help spread God's Word through the algorithm, ensuring that others hear the undeniable power of his promises. Comment your spiritual reflections and how this biblical story has impacted your faith journey, for your testimony matters. And don't wait even one more second to share this powerful testimony. Send this video to at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth. Let us together harness the strength of our Savior, uniting our voices in the purpose of his glory.